All right, so we're looking at calculation of the gross domestic product, GDP, which is the total market value of the goods and services produced within a country's borders in a year. So we have the nominal GDP. This is the GDP of the country using its current year's prices, and we have the real GDP. All right, this is the GDP adjusted for inflation by using the base year's prices. So we have an example here, all right? We have country X, all right? It produces these three products: eggs, bread, and sugar, right? So in 2021, they produced 10 million eggs. The price was 2 kwacha. All right. So to get our output here, we're going to say price times quantity. So we're going to say 10 times 2. Right. This is going to be 20 million. Let me just add here millions. For bread, produce 20 million loaves of bread. Also, the price is at 2 kwachas. So the output, we're going to say 20 million times 2. That gives us 40 million. Right. And then for sugar, we produce 5 million tons of sugar. And the price is 10 kwachas, so 5 times 10, that is 50. So our GDP, all right, the nominal GDP, the first thing they've asked us here, we'll go to read this part here. They've asked us to calculate the nominal GDP for both years. Right. So to calculate the nominal GDP for both years, we're going to use the current prices for the years. Right. So for 2021, we're going to total up 20 plus 40 plus 50. That's going to give us 110 million. All right. 110 million kwacha. All right. So this is our GDP. It is in kwachas. So 110 million kwacha. So that's the nominal GDP for 2021. Right. For 2022, the nominal GDP going to go produced 12 billion eggs. 12 times 2.5. That gives us 30 million kwacha. 25 times for bread, it's 25 times 3. We're going to get 75 million kwacha. Sugar, 5 times 11, 55 million kwacha. So the nominal GDP is 30 plus 75 plus 55. That is 160 million kwacha. All right, so here, let me just put amount. Right. So we have got our nominal GDPs for 2021 and 2022. So we've answered part A, part 1. The next thing that we're told to do is now calculate the GDP, the real GDP for 2022 using 2021 as the base year. right? So the base year is basically the year which we use as a reference point, especially when we're comparing it to other years, right? Let me just, that's the nominal GDPs. It's 2021 here, yes. Yes, it is. And in all the questions, they'll always give you the base year, all right? So the base year, if you calculate the real GDP and the nominal GDP, they'll be the same values, okay? Because the base year, the purpose of the base year is to use the prices for the base year, right? So if for 2021, the nominal and real GDP will be the same. But for 2022, there's going to be a change because we're not going to use the prices for 2022, we're going to use the prices for 2021. All right, so here on prices, we're not going to use 2022's prices, we're going to use 2021's prices. So eggs in 2021 it was 2, bread 2, sugar 10. Here we put 2, 2, and 10. Right, so we're going to say 12 times 2, we get 24 million. And 5 times 2, we get 50 million. And 5 times 10, we're going to get 50 million. Right? So we tabulate the total amount. So our real GDP for 2022, okay, we're going to say 24 plus 50 plus 50. Okay, gives us 124 million, right? So you can see a difference. Our nominal GDP, right? Where is it? Our nominal GDP is telling us that our nominal GDP is 160 million, but our real GDP is 124, right? So what could have caused that amount to go to 160 million for 2022 is obviously increase in prices, all right? As you can see, eggs, the price increased. It was in 2021, it was 2 kwacha, 2022, it's 2.5. Bread, it was 2 kwacha. In 2022, it's now 3 kwacha. Sugar was 10 kwacha. In 2022, it was 11 kwacha. So, with those price increases, we're given a nominal GDP of 160 million. But when we adjust it, all right, and used the base year's prices, you can see that our real GDP is 124 million. All right. So that's the purpose of this real GDP because increases in prices can give you a bigger number and you might think the country is doing well, but that increase can just be because of an increase in price. All right. The country may not even be doing well. So before we go further, any questions? All right. We can go to question three. What is the rate of real output growth from 2021 to 2022? So I want to say how by what percentage has the real GDP grown, right, from 2021 to 22? So whenever you want to find percent changes, it's always new minus old divided by old. So in this case, for the real, it's going to be GDP 2. This is the GDP for 2022. We subtract it from the GDP from 2021 and divide it by the GDP for 2021 to find our percent growth divided by GDP for year one, right, times 100. Right, so the real GDP here, we're using the real GDPs, not the nominal GDPs, but the real GDP. Right, so the real GDP. So GDP for year two is 124 minus the GDP for 2021. Remember, since it's the base year, its nominal and real GDP will be the same, but excuse me, same value. So it's 110 here divided by 110 multiplied by 100. So you're going to say 124 minus 110 divided by 110 times 100. You are going to get 12.73, all right, percent. So what this is telling us is our GDP has grown by 12.73% from 2021 to 2022. That's the growth of our GDP. It's grown by 12.73%. Are we okay on this? So GDP growth rate. All right, the next part of us is calculate the real GDP per capita if the population of the country is 50 million, right? So real GDP per capita, basically real GDP, if we break it down to each person, all right, per capita means per person, real GDP per capita equals our real GDP divided by our population. Right? So we find the real GDP capita for first 2021. Right? So 2021, our real and nominal GDP is 110 million kwacha. So we're going to 110 million kwacha divided by 50 million. So that's the population. So it's 110 million divided by 50 million. That's 2.2. All right. And let's say for 2022, GDP per capita. Right. Our real GDP was 124 million divided by 50 million. And so after this, we're going to look at the GDP per capita for different countries so that we can see how the GDP per capita for a rich country looks like and for a poor country. All right. So 124 million divided by 50 million. Divided by 50 million. This is 2.48 kwacha per person. I forgot to put that per person. And here it's 2.2 kwacha per person. Right? So that's how you calculate the real GDP capita. You just divide the real GDP by the population. All right. And the real GDP per capita is used as a guide to see the standard of living for different countries. That's the purpose of the real GDP per capita, right? For evaluating the standard of living. Okay. Then finally, they're asking us what is the inflation rate between 2021 and 2022, right? So this is where I introduce you to the GDP deflator, right? Okay, sure. Just could you repeat? Could you repeat? Sorry, a bit faint on my end. Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes. Yes. And since, yes. So as I said, the base year, the real and nominal GDP are going to be the same because, as you can see, since 2021 is the base year, so when you use the base year's prices, these are the base year prices. So you find that when you calculate the real GDP, it will be the same as the nominal GDP for the base year. Yes. Maybe let me just add that so that for studying purposes, let me just add that. Where can I put that? Where can I put that? Okay. for this year, the nominal GDP equals the real GDP. Right? Okay. Is that all, Mr. Quima? Okay. Yes, so I was bringing in the concept of the GDP deflator. Okay, this tells us how much prices have risen from the base year, right? As you see, when we come to the topic of inflation, there are two ways we can calculate the inflation rate, right? The consumer price index or the GDP deflate. Just hold on, so let me just answer this call. Mhm. How are you? How are you? Yes, so two tools used to measure inflation, the GDP deflator and the consumer price index. Right. So for the GDP deflator, right, GDP deflator is equal to nominal GDP divided by real GDP multiplied by 100. Right, so this 100, it's not, we're not converting it into percentages, no, but into base numbers. All right. So I'm going to show you how the base numbers work. Right. So we're going to say the GDP deflator for 2021. All right. Nominal GDP is 110. Right. The real GDP is 110. Multiply that by 100. The GDP deflator for the base year is always 100. All right. That's one thing you should also know. GDP deflator for the base year is always 100. Base numbers, right? This is how we read them, right? So base year. Then we're going to find the GDP deflator for 2022. Again, nominal GDP over real GDP. So we're going to say our nominal GDP for 2022 was 160 million divided by our real GDP, it was 124 times 100, right? So we're going to say 164 divided by 160 divided by 124, that's 1.29. 1.29 times 100, we get 129. Right. So this is how base numbers work, right? To see the inflation rate, all right, to get out, because the questions ask us to determine the inflation rate, if it's increased or decreased. So using base numbers, right, we're just going to subtract this 129 minus 100, 109 minus 100, and we get 29. Now, what this means is the price level of goods and services has increased by 29%, all right, from 2021 to 2022, all right. Price level of goods and services has increased by 29%, right? That's how we use base numbers, all right? Base numbers, all right? Or index numbers, sorry, index numbers. The index numbers are always going to have a base year or a base number, the point of reference, all right? So 2021, which is our base year, is going to have 100, right? Then this point of reference, you'll be comparing it with other years, right? So as you can see, in 2022, we got 129. So to see how much the inflation rate has increased, we just subtract 129 minus 100. So the price level of goods and services has increased by 29%. All right. If you got a number like 80, all right, 80, number less than 100, then it means the inflation rate has decreased by 20%. All right. If any numbers below 100, it means that is a decrease. Any numbers above 100, that means that is an increase.